In my last video, I pointed out that proportional representation was the best way to form national parliaments, but I also pointed out that there are many different forms of proportional representation, many of which are not particularly democratic themselves. So what should and shouldn't we do? I'm going to spend this video discussing some of the various alternatives, and then in a later video I'm going to outline a specific system that I think would give a good balance between the desirable properties. For illustration purposes, I'll start off with an example of how definitely not to do it, and that is how we elect members of the European Parliament, or MEPs, in the UK. Or certainly how we used to elect them anyway. The UK is divided into 12 regions. One of these regions, Northern Ireland, actually uses a different voting system from the others for some reason. It uses a single transferable vote system, which I would argue is better than what is used in the rest of the UK. But I'll come back to that later. In the rest of the UK, we have what's called a closed party list system, and it's awful. Each region elects MEPs ranging from 3 to 10, depending on the population of the region. But we don't vote for the individual MEPs, we vote for the parties. There is a list of the candidates standing for each party on the ballot paper, but you can't choose between them. They are there for information purposes only. This is what the ballot paper might look like. It's still vote for one like a first past the post election. You select one party and then within your region parties are allocated seats proportional to their vote share. And once it's determined how many seats each party is going to get, these seats go to the party candidates according to a predetermined list decided by the party. The list is printed on the ballot paper, but because we, the voters, have no say on which candidates from each party get elected, it's called a closed party list system. It's a poor system for three main reasons. One, being a closed list system, you're restricted to voting for parties rather than individual candidates, which reduces its democratic credentials. There are open party list systems, where a voter selects a party and also their favourite candidate within the party, so that the most popular candidates within a party get the party seats, rather than this being determined by the party in advance. This isn't much more complicated. It just requires a ballot like this instead. As you can see, this is still pretty simple. Instead of just picking a party, you pick your favourite candidate of the party you are voting for. 2. Even though it uses a simple closed party list system, the UK is completely unnecessarily divided into several regions, and this means you don't get proportional representation at a very fine level. For example, in the East of England region, which is my region, there are 7 MEPs who won their seats in the 2014 election. Of these 7, 3 are from UKIP, the United Kingdom Independence Party, 3 are Conservative and 1 Labour. UKIP and the Conservatives won 6 out of the 7 seats between them. That's over 85%, but actually they got about 63% of the vote between them. The Green Party got 8.5% of the vote, and the Liberal Democrats got 6.9% of the vote, but neither won a seat, so these votes were wasted. This is because of the rounding you get when a percentage of the vote that a party gets doesn't exactly match a whole number of seats. A party can keep missing out on winning a seat in several regions, and nationally they end up getting far less than their proportional share. In the most recent 2014 election, the Liberal Democrats got 6.61% of the vote nationally, but won just 1 seat out of 73, or 1.37%. If the whole UK was treated as one big region for this election for all 73 seats, then the proportional allocation would have been far more accurate. It makes no sense to me at all that it wasn't done this way, given that it was a closed party list election, and also that very few people have any sort of affiliation with their local MEPs. So our European elections were the worst of both worlds. We have to vote for parties rather than individual candidates, and yet we still have these regions that ensure that we don't get proportionality at a very fine level anyway. So that was number 2. You don't get proportionality at a very fine level, which is completely unnecessary with a closed party list system. And number 3, Like first past the post, this system is still vote for one. This means that if you vote for a party that doesn't get enough votes to get a seat, then your vote is just wasted. As I said earlier, in the East of England region, the Green Party got 8.5% of the vote and the Liberal Democrats got 6.9%, and neither won a seat. But between them they got more than a seat's worth of votes that could potentially have been transferred to a second choice. But instead, they were just thrown away. The ability to rank or rate more than one party would have been a big improvement. This wouldn't have been quite so important with national level proportionality, as most of these votes would have still have counted. But with the country divided into regions, many votes were wasted. So to summarise the 3 reasons why regional closed list elections are a poor idea. Number 1, we vote for parties rather than candidates, making it less democratic. 2, the UK is divided into regions, so we don't get proportional representation at a very fine level. And 3, like first past the post, it's still vote for one, which causes a lot of wasted votes. Ideally, we'd want to be able to vote for candidates individually rather than having to vote for parties, have national level proportionality, and also be able to say something about more than just one party or candidate, so that fewer votes are wasted. It would be very difficult to get all of these together, so some degree of compromise is probably required. For example, the Electoral Reform Society in the UK recommends that we use a single transferable vote system for our parliamentary elections. This is more democratic than party list elections, because we get to vote for the candidates individually, and we aren't limited to voting for the candidates of one party. But if we use single transferable vote, we would still need to divide the country into regions, because there is no way you could have a ballot paper listing every candidate standing in the country. But we saw that even with 7-seat constituencies, the level of proportionality would not always be that great, so we certainly wouldn't want anything less than that. I'll quickly go through how the single transferable vote system works now in basic detail. Voters rank the candidates, as they do in the alternative vote system, 1, 2, 3, etc., with 1 for their favourite. A candidate needs a set number of votes to be elected, known as the quota. This might be, for example, the number of voters divided by the number of seats, so that if there are 7 seats, then a candidate might need a 7th of the votes to get elected. It's not always exactly that, but I won't complicate matters any further here. If any candidate has a full quota's worth of first preferences on the ballots, then they are elected. Any surplus votes above the quota are transferred to the voter's second choice. Well, you can't say which of the votes were part of the quota and which were the surplus, so what you do is you transfer all of them, but at a fractional value. For example, if the quota is 1,000 votes, and a candidate gets 2,000 first preferences, then each of the voters of this candidate gets half a vote transferred to their second favourite. Then you see if any other candidates have made the quota after the surplus has been transferred. And if so, elect them and transfer the surplus votes, and so on until no candidate reaches the quota. At this point you eliminate the candidate with the fewest votes, and votes for this candidate are transferred to the voter's next preference. So in order of priority, number 1, elect the candidates with a quota of votes and transfer the surplus. And 2, if this can't be done, eliminate the candidate with the fewest votes. And you stop the process once all the seats have been filled. With single transferable vote, every candidate is listed on the ballot paper, and each voter can rank them in any order they like, irrespective of parties. But if you've got, say, 7 available seats and 5 parties, all the parties might field 7 candidates, and you might have a handful of independent candidates as well. So that would be a ballot paper with potentially about 40 candidates on. It might not be quite that much. No party is likely to win all 7 seats, so they might not field all 7. But even so, you'd be lucky to get a ballot paper with less than 25 candidates on. And 25 is a lot to rank. You don't have to rank all of them. You can stop at any point you want, after your top 5, 10 or whatever. But this does seem to limit the size of the regions, because you don't want the ballot paper to end up too big or cluttered, or intimidating to voters. This is a single transferable vote ballot for a region with 7 seats and 40 candidates standing. This is approaching the limit of what is acceptable in terms of size, and I don't think that 7 seats is even enough to ensure an acceptable level of proportional representation anyway. As I mentioned earlier, There is also open party list, which is preferable to closed party list. In these elections, you vote for a party candidate, which also counts as a vote for their party. Parties are allocated seats as in a closed party list election, and the seats that a party wins are given to the candidates of that party who individually got the most votes. Someone can still stand as an independent candidate in party list elections, whether open list or closed list. They effectively stand in a party of their own, which fields just one candidate, as you can see from the ballot. But this is still unsatisfactory. Party list elections are still vote for one, and if you vote for an independent candidate or a small party and they don't get elected, your vote is simply thrown away. So this discourages people from voting for candidates or parties that they consider to be outsiders. If your favourite candidate within the party you vote for doesn't get elected, then your vote still counts for the other candidates within that party, but beyond that your vote has no power. With single transferable vote, you can rank the candidates from as many or as few parties as you want. You're not limited to the candidates of one party. For this reason, I see single transferable vote as superior to party list elections, despite the added complexity. However, there is another type of proportional representation election, and that is mixed member elections. They have this in Germany, and effectively you get 2 votes, as you can see from this ballot. You vote for a constituency candidate as you would in a normal first-past-the-post election, and these candidates are elected in the normal way. But you also get a separate vote for a party. Once a constituency MPs have been elected, a certain number of top-up MPs are also elected, using the results of the party ballots. And this is done in a way so that, as close as possible, proportional representation is achieved over the whole of the Parliament. So this would take into account the seats won by the party candidates in the first-past-the-post elections. This system has some advantages. It gives people a single local representative, rather than several over a larger region, which some people prefer. It also gives something close to national level proportionality, and a relatively simple ballot. But in most versions of this, the party vote is still a closed party list election, so not very democratic. And the system also generally works against independent candidates, since half the seats aren't open to them. The constituency election is also held using first past the post, which, as we know, is an awful system. But that part could easily be changed to something better, without having any knock-on effects with the proportional part. In the way that it is normally used, I don't think mixed member proportional representation is a very good system, but with some tweaks I think it could be, and I'll be discussing that in another video. So the criteria we seem to be after are as follows. Number 1, the ability to vote for candidates, including independent candidates, rather than just parties. Number 2, local representation. 3, a fine level of proportional representation. If a party gets 10% of the vote everywhere, then they should get 10% of the seats, and the lower this percentage gets, the finer the proportionality. And number 4, simplicity of ballot. Some of these criteria appear to be in tension with each other, and none of the systems mentioned seem to have got the best compromise. But I do think we can combine the best of these systems to come up with something better, and that's what I'll be discussing in a later video. Thank you for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, you can subscribe to my channel. Even better, you can buy my book, Stuff and Consciousness, Connecting Matter and Mind, by me, Toby Pereira. It's all about how your seemingly non-physical thoughts and feelings can come from your physical brain. It's available in paperback and also on Kindle. Links are available in the video description below, or you can visit my website at www.tobypereira.co.uk. Thank you.